He hit his wife and the child, recorded everything, and the video ended up on social media. Everything seemed normal, a house like any other, a hardworking man, a devoted mother, a quiet child, a family, the kind that neighbors greet without imagining what goes on behind the walls. But when night falls and the lights go out, there are secrets that refuse to stay quiet. A child who didn't scream, didn't run, didn't ask for help with words. A child who did something no one expected, and in doing so set off something bigger than himself. A simple click, a recording, and suddenly, everything changed. What that child recorded not only broke the silence of his home, it broke the silence of an entire community. And that video that should never have existed became evidence, an echo, a message that reached corners where pain had learned to hide. If you stay, you will learn what many keep silent about. You will hear screams that no one heard. You will see through the eyes of a child who understood too early that sometimes recording what hurts can save lives. This is not just a story that will make you feel. It is a story you will not be able to forget. Get ready, because what you are about to hear really happened. Tell us in the comments which city you are listening from. Let's begin. It was just another house in the Emiliano Zapata neighborhood in Ixtapaluca, one of those where Sundays smell like chicken broth and the air is filled with distant laughter. But there was no laughter in the Amora Ortiz home, at least not for a long time. From the outside, they looked like an ordinary family. Don Julian, in his 40s with a serious face and trimmed mustache, was the classic man who didn't talk much and worked all day. His wife Marissa was just over 35, dark-haired, thin, and with a constant expression of fatigue. And their son Liam, 9 years old, always walked with his head down, his notebooks messy, and that look that seemed to hide everything. Every morning was the same. Marissa left early to drop Liam off at school. They always walked without talking. Sometimes she would stroke his hair just before he entered the rusty gate of the elementary school. Julian had already left for work. No one looked at them strangely. No one suspected anything, and yet the neighbors did hear things. "I heard screams last night," Doña Socorro once said to her husband as they hung out the laundry, as if they were having a nasty argument. "Don't get involved, old woman." "Why? Do you want trouble?" he replied, without looking up. Everyone knew. No one said anything. At night, when everything seemed to be asleep, Liam's eyes were wide open. The house had thin walls, and everything could be heard. His father's loud voice, his mother's quiet pleas, footsteps, doors, blows. The boy didn't cry, not for months. He would crawl under his bed with his headphones on, even if there was no music playing, just to feel like he was somewhere else. One Friday afternoon, after doing half of his homework, Liam went downstairs to get a drink of water. He found his mother in the kitchen, sitting with her head down. She wasn't cooking. She wasn't moving her hands. She was just sitting there. Liam stood silently with the glass in his hand. "Are you okay, Mom?" Marissa looked up and smiled. A smile so fake it hurt. Her eyes were red. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Did you finish your homework?" Liam nodded. He wanted to say something else, to ask her something, to hug her, but he didn't dare, as if an invisible barrier separated them. He went to his room, closed the door, and lay down with his sneakers on. He no longer knew what happy days were like. Sometimes he dreamed about them, with laughter he couldn't quite remember, with a house that wasn't this one. That night, Marissa cleaned a bloodstain from the sleeve of her blouse. She did it without thinking, as if she were washing a dirty dish. Her reflection in the window gave her a lost look. She didn't even cry, and the next day, as usual, she hung clothes in the yard while Julian watered the garden as if nothing had happened. The neighbor across the street, a fat man who always drank beer on the sidewalk, looked at them and clicked his tongue. Strange people. No one knew anything. No one said anything. No one did anything. But someone was watching everything. Liam, quiet, hidden between his fears and his sketchbook, drew houses without doors, windows without light, and sometimes he drew his mother with wings as if she could fly. And one night, as he listened to his father's heavy footsteps in the living room, something in him began to change. Something that still had no form, but that, without knowing it, was going to change everything. The noise started just after 10 o'clock. It was a sharp bang, as if someone had thrown a chair against the wall. Liam woke up with a start. His heart began to beat, as if it were in a hurry. He knew what was coming. He had heard it before. But that night something was different. It wasn't just shouting or arguments. This time there was a tone he didn't recognize. A tremor in his mother's voice that made his blood run cold. He got out of bed quietly, the cold floor pinching his bare feet, and walked slowly to the door, opening it just enough to peek out. From the hallway, he could see the reflection of the living room. Marissa was standing with her hands in front of her chest as if protecting herself. Julian's face was contorted. He was panting. The collar of his shirt was torn. "So you're calling me a liar?" Julian shouted, advancing with heavy steps. "Julian, stop!" Marissa whispered, but her voice was fragile, like a string about to break. "I just asked you if you took money from the cupboard." The phrase was like gasoline on a fire. He raised his hand. Marissa managed to cover her face just in time, but the blow was sharp, brutal. He pushed her against the couch. A vase fell and broke. The dog that had been sleeping by the door ran away with its tail between its legs. Liam cowered. He was trembling. He couldn't breathe properly. His whole body wanted to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He just watched. His mother tried to get up. Her cheek was already turning purple. "I've put up with you for a long time, Marissa," Julian shouted. "You're not going to come to me with your stuff now." She didn't answer. She just covered her face again. Liam took a step back, went into his room, and closed the door quietly. He slumped down next to the bed, with his back against the wall, and there, as if driven by something he didn't understand, he reached under the pillow and took out his cell phone. The screen was cracked in one corner, but it worked. He held it in his hands for a moment, not knowing what to do. Then he unlocked it, opened the camera, pointed it at the crack in the door, and started recording. His fingers were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard in his chest that he thought the microphone would pick it up. The image was blurry, dark, but you could hear everything. The screams, the insults, his mother's crying, Julian's increasingly uncontrolled voice. Liam swallowed hard. He didn't know why he was doing it. He just felt he had to, as if that video could be a shield, as if by capturing it, things would become real, as if someone could one day see what he experienced every night. And in the midst of it all, suddenly, a different noise, the loudest blow of all, followed by silence, then a groan. Liam stopped recording and put his cell phone down. His mother was no longer crying, only her heavy breathing could be heard. His father said something else, but it was no longer understandable. The boy put the phone under his pillow and sat with his eyes wide open. Hours later, after midnight, Marissa entered the room. She had a handkerchief in her hand. She sat down next to him without turning on the light. In the darkness, she stroked his hair. "It's over, my love. It's over." Liam said nothing. He felt a lump in his throat. He thought about telling her about the video, but he didn't. Not that night. She hugged him, and they both cried silently. The next day, Liam didn't want to go to school. He said he had a stomachache, but it wasn't true. Marissa knew, but she didn't say anything. She let him stay home. She just asked him not to lock himself in his room. "At least come down for breakfast," Liam asked in a dull voice. But Liam didn't come down. He wasn't hungry. He couldn't stop thinking about what was on his cell phone. He took it out from under his pillow and looked at it again. Not everything, just a few seconds. Enough to feel the fear again. The image was dark, but he could hear everything. His mother begging, his father shouting. That sharp blow that still echoed in his head. He put it away again as if it were something that burned. He didn't know why he had recorded it. He didn't know what he was going to do with it. He just knew that something had changed. He could no longer pretend that nothing was happening. Please like the video now to help break this silence and help more people see this story. Meanwhile, downstairs, Marissa sat in front of her cold coffee. She didn't have the strength to clean up the broken vase. On one side of the living room, the lamp was still lying on the floor from the night before. Everything in that house was out of place, but it had already become normal. When Julian came home from work, everything was quiet. Marissa pretended to watch television. Liam didn't even come downstairs. Julian didn't ask about him. He went into the bathroom, changed his clothes, and poured himself a beer. No one spoke at dinner. That night, Marissa went back to Liam's room. This time, she didn't go in. She just rested her forehead against the closed door and said, "Little one, I'm sorry." Liam didn't answer. He pretended to be asleep, but in his head something was spinning out of control. He couldn't erase the sound of that blow. He couldn't stop thinking about his mother, her face, her eyes. And then, the next day at school, while the other children played during recess, Liam took out his cell phone, walked away to the corner of the playground next to the fence at the back, leaned against the wall, and looked around as if he were about to do something wrong. His heart was beating fast. He opened the gallery, selected the video, hesitated a lot, swiped his finger over the share button, and removed it several times. Until, without thinking twice, he did it. He chose someone. He didn't know why he chose that person. Maybe because he listened to him in class. Maybe because one day, he lent him an eraser. Matteo, his desk mate, the only kid who didn't laugh when Liam spoke softly. And he sent it. One click. Just one click. Instantly, he felt as if he had been doused with ice-cold water. He put his phone in his pants pocket and stood still, staring at the sky. He didn't know he had just dropped a bomb. He didn't know the video would end up much further than he could have imagined. The first person to open the video was Matteo. It was after school while his mom was buying tortillas, and he was waiting, sitting on the sidewalk. He saw the notification on WhatsApp, and without thinking, he tapped on it. At first, he didn't understand what it was. He could only hear screaming. Then he recognized Liam's voice, not because he was talking, but because of the muffled crying in the background. And then, he saw the blow. He paused it abruptly, his stomach churning. He stared at the black screen for a few seconds. Then he turned to look at his mother, who was still in line at the tortilla shop. He didn't know what to do. The first thing he did was forward it, not with bad intentions. He did it without thinking, as children do when they want to understand something. He sent it to a group where other classmates were. In less than 5 minutes, 10 people were watching the video, and in less than an hour, someone sent it to a larger neighborhood group where everyone sends memes, theft warnings, or pizza promotions. By the time Liam got home that afternoon, the video was already out of his control. He didn't know it yet. He went up to his room, dropped his backpack on the floor, and lay face down on his bed. Marissa had made him rice with eggs, but he didn't come down to eat. His stomach was churning. He regretted it. He thought about telling Matteo to delete it, not to show it to anyone, that it was just for him, but it was too late. Meanwhile, on the other side of the neighborhood, a group of adults watched the video with furrowed brows. Some covered their mouths. Others murmured that they had always suspected something. One woman burst into tears. Another sent a message to the school administration. "You saw that. It's Liam's dad, the one who lives in the house next to the vacant lot. What do we do? Do we call the police? We can't just leave it like that. The boy lives there. If you were in their shoes, what would your first step be? And who would you buy it for?" Let's share your thoughts in the comments so we can make the right move visible together. That same night, the elementary school principal received the video on her cell phone. She watched it in her living room, coffee trembling in her hands. She felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know whether to call the police, the district attorney, the parents, or everyone. Meanwhile, Marissa was in the kitchen washing the dishes when she received a call. It was her cousin Daniela, who lived in another neighborhood. "Mana, are you okay?" "Why?" Marissa replied, confused. "I just saw a video. I don't know how it got there, but it's you and Julian. It's horrible." Marissa dropped a glass into the sink. It shattered into pieces. Her hand began to shake. "What? What video?" "One where he hits you. You can see it clearly. Someone recorded it. From inside your house, Marissa." There was complete silence on the other end of the line. Marissa felt everything spinning around her. She leaned her hand against the wall to keep from falling. Only one image was in her mind. Liam ran up the stairs as fast as he could. He entered without knocking. He found him lying with his face covered by the pillow. "Liam, did you record that?" The boy didn't answer. "Was it you?" Liam nodded with an almost invisible movement. Marissa put her hands to her mouth. She didn't know whether to hug him, yell at him, or burst into tears. Instead, she let herself fall down next to him. She hugged him tight, very tight. "Who did you send it to?" "Matteo," he whispered. Only Matteo, but it didn't matter anymore. Outside, on the cell phones of the neighborhood, The video continued to jump from chat to chat, and the bomb had already exploded. That night, the entire neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. The video was no longer just a rumor. Half the neighborhood had seen it. Some people had forwarded it on impulse, others out of outrage, and many more out of pure curiosity. But no one could stop it now. It even reached the third-grade parents' WhatsApp group, a group Marissa didn't even know existed. There, one woman wrote in capital letters, "Someone has to do something. That man is a danger to his family and to everyone." Another added, "And the child is still with him. We have to call the police." Meanwhile, the atmosphere at home was tense. Marissa locked herself in her room with Liam. She had turned off the lights and closed the curtains. No one said a word. Julian still hadn't arrived. Marissa didn't know whether to call him, confront him, or run away before he set foot in the house. But she had nowhere to go. And in her head, only one thing echoed over and over, giving her no peace. What will he do when he finds out about the video? Because Julian had a way of exploding without warning. He could seem calm one minute, and then turn into pure fire the next. That was the real danger. You never knew how, when, or with what force he would explode. And now, they had exposed him, unmasked him. At 10:20 p.m., the front door opened. Julian walked in with normal steps, just like any other day. He locked the door, left the keys in the usual place, and walked toward the kitchen. Marissa heard everything from the bedroom. Then he spoke. "Marissa." His voice was strangely calm, calmer than normal. "What is this that's circulating everywhere?" Silence. "Who recorded you?" Marissa opened the door slowly. She didn't go downstairs. "It was Liam," she said, barely audible. A heavy, dangerous pause. "What do you mean, Liam?" "He recorded what happened the other day and sent it to a classmate. I didn't know." "What? I didn't know what, Marissa?" Julian suddenly shouted, and the sound echoed throughout the house. Liam cowered in bed. Marissa ran down the stairs. "Julian, everyone has seen it. There's no turning back now. They're talking about it in groups. The principal has it. They're coming." Julian looked at her as if he didn't recognize her. "Did you know? I found out today, and I couldn't erase it. I couldn't, Julian. I was afraid." Julian clenched his teeth, grabbed a chair from the kitchen, and threw it against the wall. The crash made Liam cover his ears upstairs. "They're going to destroy us," Julian shouted as if he were the victim. "All because of that brat. Don't talk about him like that," Marissa shouted, with a strength she didn't know she had. "It wasn't his fault. He saw you hitting me." "Julian, what did you want me to do?" Julian looked at her with a mixture of rage and panic. He was no longer the confident man he had been before. He was a cornered animal, and at that moment, someone knocked loudly on the door several times. Marissa froze. Julian approached with heavy steps, but before he could open it, a voice shouted from outside, "Municipal police! Open the door!" Marissa ran to Liam's room and hugged him. Julian stood paralyzed, and everything finally began to fall apart. The knocking on the door grew louder. "Abraham, we will have to force our way in." From above, Liam held his mother tightly. Marissa was trembling. Julian was breathing heavily below, like a bull before charging. He paced back and forth, his eyes bloodshot. He seemed unsure whether to open the door or escape through the kitchen window. "Julian, that's enough. Please don't make this any bigger," Marissa shouted from the stairs in tears. He looked at her, said nothing. The officers didn't wait any longer. One of them, taller, wearing a bulletproof vest that said "Public Safety," gave the order. "Break it down!" 2 well-placed blows were enough to break the old wooden door. "Police, don't move. Hands up." 3 officers entered with their weapons lowered but steady. Julian raised his hands but did not take a step back. He stood there in the middle of the room, looking at everyone as if they were ghosts. "Are you armed?" one asked. "No," Marissa replied from above, slowly coming down with Liam by the hand. "He's just scared." "Are you Marissa Ortiz?" asked an officer with her hair tied back, approaching calmly. "Yes," said Marissa. "We received a video that has been circulating since this morning," the officer added. "A minor at risk was identified. We need to talk to you and the child." "Okay," said Marissa, her voice breaking. "Whatever you want. Just get us out of here, please." One of the officers approached Liam and crouched down to his height. "You're Liam, right?" Liam nodded, his eyes wide. You're safe. Yes. We're going to take care of you. No one is going to hurt you. The boy blinked, and for a moment his eyes filled with tears. She didn't know if they were tears of fear, relief, or both at the same time. Neighbors had already gathered outside the house. There were at least a dozen people watching from the sidewalks, whispering, recording with their cell phones. What happened? Is it because of the video? Yes, it's him. That's the one who hit his wife. Julian tried to say something, took a step toward Marissa, but at that moment a police officer grabbed him firmly by the arms. You're coming with us. You're under arrest for alleged aggravated domestic violence. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say. But Julian wasn't listening to them. He was just looking at his son, Liam, with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and shame, as if he couldn't accept that everything had fallen apart because of a 9-year-old boy. Liam looked back at him, not with hatred, but with something worse, with sadness, with disappointment. Minutes later, Julian was put into a patrol car. People outside recorded everything. Some applauded, others just watched with uncomfortable seriousness. Marissa and Liam were escorted by an officer to another vehicle. They were being taken to the public prosecutor's office. The protocol was to take statements from the mother and the minor, activate the immediate protection channel, and assign a psychologist. As they drove away, Marissa took Liam's hand. "It's over, my love. It's over," she whispered, but her voice was not steady. It trembled. Liam did not respond. He just squeezed her hand. The video, which should never have existed, had changed everything, and what was to come was just beginning. The ride to the public prosecutor's office was silent. Liam sat in the back seat next to his mother, his eyes fixed on the window. The streetlights passed by quickly. Everything seemed unreal to him, as if he were in a movie he had not wanted to be in. Marissa could barely hold herself together. Her arms were crossed over her lap, and her eyes were swollen. She hadn't slept at all, and had had a pounding headache since morning, but she couldn't break down, not now. The agent accompanying them, a man in his 50s with a calm voice, tried to speak. "Don't worry, they're just going to ask a few questions and a doctor will examine the boy. Someone from psychological support will also come. It's routine." "Yes," Marissa nodded. Liam didn't move. When they arrived, they were taken directly to a small windowless office with a table, 3 chairs, and a voice recorder in the center. A woman with glasses and a friendly face greeted them. "I'm Rocio Valverde from Victim Services. We're going to ask you some questions, but there's no rush. When you're ready." Marissa sat down in front of her. Liam sat next to her. "Can we talk to the child alone for a moment?" Rocio asked. Marissa hesitated. "I'll be right here. Just a few minutes," said the psychologist who entered at that moment. "My name is Elisa. I'm from the child support team. I just want to meet Liam. Is that okay?" Liam looked at his mother. Marissa stroked his head and nodded. He accepted without saying a word. The room they took him to was warmer, with colors on the walls, books, stuffed animals. But Liam didn't touch anything. He sat in front of Elisa with his hands between his legs. "Do you know why you're here, Liam?" He nodded slightly. "Would you like to tell me what happened?" The boy was silent for a few seconds, then looked down. "My dad hits my mom. He's done it many times." "Yes, but not like last time. That was worse. I thought he was going to kill her." The psychologist kept her tone soft. "And what did you do?" "I recorded it." "Why?" Liam shrugged so that someone would know, "Because no one listens to us." Elisa swallowed the lump in her throat. "Did you want everyone to see it?" "No," Liam said quickly. "I only sent it to Mateo. My friend, I didn't know everyone would see it." "Are you scared?" Liam didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Very little. Yes, but not as much as before." The psychologist made a mental note. The maturity in that child's voice did not correspond to his age. He had experienced things he shouldn't have, things that leave scars that take years to heal, if they ever do. When he was done, Liam returned to his mother. Marissa hugged him tightly, as if they had just given her back something she had lost. Attorney Rocio informed them. "As a matter of protocol, a formal complaint will be filed. There is already enough evidence. We are also going to seek protective measures for you. Neither of you will ever be alone with Mr. Julian again. Agreed?" Marissa took a deep breath. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. She just closed her eyes. We are going to move you to a temporary shelter tonight. It's safe, and there's room. We'll talk more calmly tomorrow." That night, mother and son were taken to a gray building with no signs. It was a house adapted for women victims of violence. Inside, a social worker greeted them with a warm smile and a blanket. "You'll be fine here. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just rest tonight." Marissa lay down on a strange bed with Liam hugging her side. It was uncomfortable. There was a smell of disinfectant, and light from the hallway came in under the door. But for the first time in a long time, they didn't feel afraid. Liam fell asleep first. Marissa looked at him for a long time and thought, maybe, just maybe, there is another way to live. The next morning, the video was no longer just viral in the neighborhood. It had made it to local news sites. A Facebook account called Denuncia Paluca had posted it with the phrase, "Enough is enough. This monster beats his wife in front of his son. Share this so the authorities will do something." The video had more than 20,000 views in less than 12 hours. The comments were a mix of anger, empathy, and voyeurism. Some demanded justice. Others blamed Marissa for putting up with so much. Many more focused on the boy's bravery. That kid is more of a man than many. That video saved lives. Where are the neighbors? No one heard anything. Amid the digital chaos, Julian remained detained in a small cell awaiting his hearing. He was no longer shouting or threatening. He looked downcast, his eyes empty, as if he were just beginning to understand the magnitude of what he had done. Meanwhile, Marissa woke up in the shelter without knowing what day it was. Next to her, Liam was still asleep, hugging a blanket that wasn't his. There was something on his face that his mother hadn't seen in a long time. Peace not complete, but real. A respite amid the fire. A social worker, Carla, knocked softly on the door. "Good morning, Marissa. How did you sleep?" "Exhausted but better," she replied, rubbing her eyes. "When you're ready, breakfast is in the dining room. Then the psychologist wants to see you again. A lawyer will also come to explain the next steps." Marissa nodded. Mother and son went downstairs together. The dining room table was long, with other women and children in similar situations. No one asked any questions. They just looked at each other, as if recognizing themselves in each other's pain. Liam ate in silence. Marissa could only manage a cup of coffee. After breakfast, they were taken to a small office where the public defender was waiting for them. She was a woman with a firm voice and a clear attitude. "The complaint has already been filed," she explained. The judge ordered Julian to be held in preventive detention because it was a case of obvious violence and risk to the minor. "The protection protocol for you two has also been activated." "What does that mean?" Marissa asked uncertainly. "It means that he cannot come near you and that we can arrange for you and your son to live elsewhere with a new identity if necessary. But we have to act quickly." Marissa remained silent. She looked at Liam, who just squeezed her hand. "And if he gets out and comes looking for us, he can't. And if he does, they'll arrest him immediately. Now, Marissa, there's an important question. Do you want to continue with the process? Or do you think you'll forgive him?" The room fell silent. Marissa felt like everything was coming down on her. It wasn't easy, not because she lacked courage, but because of the weight of the past. Years of silence, manipulation, fear, dependence. All that doesn't disappear overnight. But then she looked at her son, at his serious, tired expression, at the eyes that had seen her bleed and continue to pretend that everything was fine, and she knew the answer. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'll keep going." The lawyer nodded. "Good, because you're not alone anymore." Later, Marissa received an unexpected call. It was Daniela, her cousin, the same one who had alerted her about the video. "Mana, there are a lot of rumors going around. That you're in a shelter, that the boy was the one who recorded it, that your husband is in prison." "It's all true," Marissa said curtly, not wanting to explain. Daniela was silent for a second. "I have a spare room. If you decide not to stay there, you can come with me. The boy needs to go back to school, to have his own room. And you need to start over." Marissa didn't respond right away. It wasn't easy to trust, but something in her voice gave her a little hope. And for the first time in years, Marissa felt that maybe there was a way out. The next morning brought a decision. Marissa, after a quieter night, but with her mind full of thoughts that kept her awake, accepted her cousin Daniela's offer not out of comfort or blind trust, but because she felt that Liam needed a place where he could breathe again without looking over his shoulder. Carla, the social worker at the shelter, helped her arrange the departure. "They will keep watch near your cousin's home for the first few days," she explained. "You don't have to stay long, but it's important that you start rebuilding something, Marissa. A routine, a space, a beginning." Marissa nodded, feeling that she still couldn't use the word home without it hurting. At noon, they left the shelter with 2 backpacks, one with borrowed clothes and the other with important papers, including the official protection document and the prosecutor's office contact information. Daniela welcomed them with open arms. She lived in a low-income housing project west of Chalco, an hour away from Ixtapaluca. The neighborhood was quieter, and that was enough. "The room is in the back. It's not much, but it's yours for as long as you want," she said with a nervous smile while Liam watched everything in silence. The room had an old bunk bed, a feuds hanging from a nail, and a small window without curtains. Liam put his backpack on the floor and sat on the bottom bunk. He didn't say anything. He didn't make a sound, but for the first time in weeks, he didn't seem tense. Marissa stared at the room and knew without saying it that they had reached the breaking point between before and after. That night, while Daniela was making soup with golden tortillas, Marissa received a call from the victim assistance area. "Good evening, Mrs. Marissa," said the voice of attorney Rocio. "We wanted to know if you and your son are okay. Also, we need to inform you that you will be summoned tomorrow to give a second statement. The process is ongoing, and it is important that you remain steadfast. Julian already has legal representation, and they may try to discredit you." "Discredit me?" Marissa replied, clutching her cell phone. "How?" "By saying it was an accident, that you caused it, or that you are exaggerating. It's common, but don't be afraid. The video, the child's testimony, and the medical exams are in your favor. I just ask that you don't stop now." Marissa hung up, feeling a void in her chest. Not because of doubts, but because of anger. Because even after everything that had happened, Julian didn't think he would take the blame, because that's how he always was. He would hit, and then justify himself. Liam watched her from the table. "It's okay, Mom." She forced a smile. "Everything will be fine, sweetie. I promise." But inside she knew that the journey was just beginning. Later, while Liam was drawing in a new notebook that Daniela had given him, Marissa watched him from the doorway. He was drawing a house again, but this time it had a door, and it was open. It was just a line, a stroke, but it told her everything. The public prosecutor's office was freezing. Marissa sat in front of the desk with her hands clasped and her back straight. She was not the same trembling woman who had arrived days ago. She was still hurt. Yes, but there was something new in her gaze. Determination. In front of her, the public prosecutor reviewed the papers with the same stern expression as always. He had seen many cases like this, but something in the clarity of the evidence had forced him to move faster than usual. "Ms. Marissa, do you confirm the complaint of domestic violence against Mr. Julian Zamora?" "Yes," she replied firmly. "Do you have anything else to add regarding the events that you haven't said before?" Marissa took a deep breath. There were many things she had kept quiet, many moments she had swallowed for years. Not just the beatings, but the humiliation, the control, the fear. "Yes," she said. "He isolated me. He made me think that no one would believe me. He told me that if I reported him, he would take Liam away from me. He repeated it so often that I came to believe it. But that night, when I saw my son crying while defending me, I realized I couldn't go on like this." The officer nodded, took notes, and recorded everything. Every word counted. "Are you willing to have your son testify again? This time in the presence of court experts?" "Yes, whatever it takes. I just want him to be able to live without fear." Hours later, Liam was summoned to another room. He was accompanied by a child psychologist from the court, 2 specialized experts, and a DIF official. Unlike the previous time, this statement was formal. It would be used as key evidence in the trial. Liam entered looking serious, his hair combed to one side and wearing a white shirt that was a little too big for him. He sat down in the chair in front of the cameras and microphone and waited for them to speak to him. "Are you ready, Liam?" asked the psychologist in a soft but clear voice. The boy nodded. Can you tell us what happened that night at your house? Liam looked down, took a deep breath, and spoke. My dad started yelling at my mom. She didn't say anything. She just covered her face. He pushed her, threw her down. I hid in my room, but I left the door slightly open. I had my cell phone and I recorded it. Why did you decide to record it? Because it always happens. It always happens and nobody does anything. I thought that if someone saw it, they would help us. Were you scared? Liam pressed his lips together. Yes, but more that he would do something worse to my mom. What would you have liked to happen that night? Liam looked straight ahead. This time he didn't hesitate to say that he wanted everything to stop, for someone to come in, for him to no longer be there. Did it hurt you to record it? A lot, said Liam, his eyes shining. But it hurt me more to see her like that every day. The room fell silent. One of the experts turned off the recorder. Another wiped his glasses. No one said anything for a few seconds. Liam had said more in 5 minutes than many adults say in a lifetime. That same afternoon, the prosecution concluded that the video, Marissa's statement, and the minor's testimony constituted sufficient evidence for the case to proceed as a regular criminal trial, with no possibility of a reparatory agreement or alternative outcome. Julian would face a full trial. A report began to circulate on local television. The headline was clear: childish courage. The boy who recorded his father beating his mother and broke the silence of an entire community. And although Marissa did not want attention, cameras, or interviews, there was something about that headline she could not ignore. Because yes, Liam had done what no one else dared to do. And now, everyone knew it. It didn't take long for the news to spread beyond the local area. Liam and Marissa's case was picked up by a national media outlet. A journalist from Mexico City, specializing in domestic violence issues, published a story that went viral in a matter of hours. The title read, "A child recorded the hell that no one wanted to see." The report included excerpts from Liam's testimony, authorized by the prosecutor's office, details of the context, and an uncomfortable reflection. How many Liams live among us, silenced by fear and habit? The story went viral again. Now it was no longer just the video, but the background, the structural pain, the normalization of violence behind closed doors. Marissa hadn't read it. She avoided the internet. She avoided anything that would make her relive the beatings, the insults, the fear. But Daniela, her cousin, mentioned it to her while they were having coffee. "Everyone is talking about it, sis. I even saw a clip on the evening news. They're even saying they might change the protocols at the school." Marissa didn't know whether to feel proud or scared. "I don't want fame," she said. "I just wanted him to stop hitting us." "And did you succeed?" "And Liam is setting an example. Look how he sleeps. Look how he breathes. He no longer jumps when he hears footsteps." Marissa looked down. She knew Daniela was right. That Friday, the principal of Liam's school called the cell phone number Marissa had left as an emergency contact. They wanted to talk. "We would like to reintegrate Liam as soon as possible. He will always have a place here, even though we are in another area. In addition, the school psychologist wants to accompany him on his return," said the principal. Kind, but serious. "I don't know if it's too soon," said Marissa. "All this has been a lot. You decide, but he also needs to be a child again." Marissa watched Liam play with an old toy car that Daniela had gotten for him at a flea market. He was just pushing the car along the floor, inventing roads. For the first time in a long time, he was playing. The scene broke her heart. That same night, Marissa talked to him. "Liam, would you like to go back to school?" Liam put the car aside. He thought for a moment before answering. "It's not the same, but there are children, there are games, and there are good teachers. You'll always be close by," she said, taking his hand. Liam nodded with his eyes downcast. "And if Dad gets angrier, he can't hurt you anymore, my love. There are people looking out for us. And you did the right thing." Liam was silent. "So did I record it for something good?" "For something very good," Marissa replied, hugging him tightly. That night, while Liam slept, Marissa took her cell phone. On impulse, she Googled his name, and there it was. The video, the news reports, the thousands of comments. She couldn't help reading some of them. "That boy is a hero. You can't imagine how many lives this case could change. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for recording." Marissa cried silently. She cried for the years she believed no one would help her. She cried for all the times she blamed herself. And she cried because for the first time, someone did listen. On Monday morning, Liam woke up before Marissa called him. His new uniform was folded on the chair. It was from another school, smaller, more modest, but in a different neighborhood, with different faces and no whispers. What Liam needed was not just to study, he needed to start from scratch, in a place where no one looked at him with pity. As Marissa buttoned his shirt, Liam asked quietly, "What if they look at me strangely there too? They have no reason to. And if they do, you know who you are. You're strong, you're brave." Liam didn't answer, but the way he adjusted his backpack said it all. They walked together to the entrance. The principal greeted them with a smile that was genuine, not forced. She took them to an office where a school psychologist was waiting for them, a young woman with round glasses and a soft voice. "Hi, Liam. I'm Claudia. Whenever you want to talk, I'm here. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Just be yourself." Liam nodded. He didn't know what to say. They took him to the classroom. The children were already seated. Some looked at him curiously, but no one asked any questions. The teacher introduced him calmly. "Children, today we have a new classmate. His name is Liam. Let's welcome him." "Yes. Good morning, Liam," they all said in unison, as they had been taught. Liam took a seat in the third row. He took out his notebook and his new pencil. On the outside, he seemed calm, but on the inside, he was trembling, not out of fear, but because he didn't know how he felt. During recess, a curly-haired boy approached him with a sponge ball in his hands. "Do you want to play? Here we play wall and goal." Liam looked at him hesitantly. "It's not with force, just with your feet." And just like that, he joined in. He played for the first time without thinking about shouting. He ran without imagining himself hiding. He laughed a little, but he laughed. From behind the fence, Marissa watched him with tears in her eyes. Daniela had accompanied her with a coffee in her hand. "I told you, sis. Give it time. He'll find his own way." Marissa nodded. She said nothing. That day, for the first time in a long time, they returned home without fear. But meanwhile, in another part of the city, Julian Zamora was being transferred to the Chico Nautla prison, where he would await the intermediate hearing of his trial. His defense attorney, a woman who spoke without raising her voice, explained what he already knew, with the video, the testimonies, and the DIF protocol activated. There is no way to avoid trial. You can't even get an alternative measure. "What if I say it was staged?" The lawyer looked at him expressionlessly. He's a 9-year-old boy who said with tears in his eyes, "I wish he would stop. You're not going to convince anyone." Julian remained silent. The worst thing was not being in prison. The worst thing was knowing that outside, for the first time, they no longer feared him. That night, Marissa found a voice message from psychologist Claudia on her cell phone. "Good evening, Marissa. I just wanted to let you know that Liam had a good day. He participated in class, played at recess, didn't talk much, but didn't avoid contact. We're taking it step by step, but he's doing well." Marissa held the phone to her chest. For the first time, she felt something like relief, something like hope. The legal process began with force. The prosecution immediately presented the evidence to the judge. The video recorded by Liam, the psychological report confirming years of systematic violence, and the minor's testimony. Julian, from the prison, appeared impassive, but he no longer had that haughty look with which he had always instilled fear. His image had changed, and he knew it. Meanwhile, Marissa was summoned to the first preliminary hearing. It was a necessary step, but not an easy one. Daniela accompanied her to the entrance of the courthouse in Chimalhuacan. It was a gray building with cold corridors and exhausted faces. Marissa walked straight ahead, with a folder in her hand and a lump in her throat. It wasn't because she was afraid of Julian. It was because of what it meant to be there, to face everything she had wanted to forget. "Ready?" asked a lawyer from the public prosecutor's office who was waiting for her at the entrance. "No," Marissa replied honestly, "but I'm going anyway." The lawyer nodded. "Then you're already more ready than most." Upon entering the courtroom, she did not see Julian physically. He was connected from the prison via video call. That did not make it any less tense. Even on a screen, his presence filled the room. When the prosecution began to recount the events, Marissa felt her hands sweating. Every word, every blow described, shook her inside, but she did not lower her head. Not this time. Julian did not take his eyes off the screen, but he did not speak either. He just swallowed hard and moved his leg nervously. "The defendant maintains that it was a misunderstanding," said his defense attorney, who was under stress and does not clearly remember what happened. The judge looked up from the file and said the video was also distressing. The defense attorney did not know how to respond. She only asked that the emotional context of the defendant be taken into account, that he had lost his job, that he had financial problems, that he had been verbally provoked. Marissa clenched her fists, as always. At the end of the hearing, the judge handed down the expected ruling, formal opening of the trial. The case would move on to the next stage. Julian, his face pale, looked down for the first time. He no longer had anyone to control. He no longer had a home, or power, or fear to protect him. Marissa left the courthouse with her head held high. That afternoon, when she got home, Liam was waiting for her with a drawing. It was simple, done with crooked crayons, but clear. A woman and a child holding hands, with a house in the background, and the word "free" written above it. Marissa knelt down to hug him. "This is for you, in case you ever forget what we did." She said nothing, just hugged him. Meanwhile, the story continued to be present on social media. Many media outlets talked about the case as an example. Some even said that Marissa and Liam were symbols of hope. But Marissa did not feel like a symbol of anything. She did not seek to be heard by everyone. She just wanted a life where she no longer had to explain why she was afraid of her own home, and little by little, she was achieving it. The days passed more quickly, but each one had its own weight. Liam no longer slept hugging his pillow. He began to leave the door ajar of his own accord. Marissa noticed, but said nothing. She understood that for her son, this was a sign not of mistrust, but that he finally felt that nothing bad could come through that door. The routine at Daniela's house became more stable. They had breakfast together. Liam went to school. Marissa looked for work in her spare time. They were no longer locked up, no longer in hiding, but they still lived as if the past could catch up with them at any moment. One morning, while Liam was doing his homework, Marissa received a call that instantly made her body tense. It was from the court. "Mrs. Marissa, good afternoon. We would like to inform you that the trial has been scheduled for the 22nd at 9 a.m. The judge has ordered that the minor not attend. Subscribe so you don't miss how this process ended and more similar true stories. Be the first to know when a new episode is released." He will be represented by his recorded testimony and psychological reports. As for Julian, he will be present with his defense, but the video is considered compelling evidence. His lawyer has tried to dismiss the recording on the grounds that it was taken by a minor, but the judge has already denied that request. You just need to stay calm and say what you know. Don't let them pressure you. Marissa hung up feeling a knot in her stomach. Everything was coming to a head, the end or the beginning. She didn't know which of the two weighed more heavily on her. That night, while they were having dinner, Marissa told Liam, "The trial is soon. You don't have to go, just me." Liam looked at her silently, chewing slowly. "What if he says I lied? No one will believe that." "Son, you've seen that we're not alone. There are many people who heard what you recorded. And most importantly, you know the truth." Liam looked down. "Sometimes I feel bad for doing it." Marissa froze. "Why?" "Because he was my dad." His words were like a stone in her chest. Marissa approached him, took his hands, and spoke without hesitation. "What he put you through is not being a father. Being a father means caring for you, protecting you, teaching you with love. He failed in all of that. And you, Liam, you did the right thing. You have no reason to feel guilty. He was the one to blame." Liam said no more, just hugged her tightly, as if he needed to reconfirm that she was still there, that she hadn't left, that they hadn't taken her away. Days later, Marissa was summoned to a new meeting with the prosecutor's office. Waiting for her in the room were the lawyer handling the case, a forensic psychologist, and a representative from the DIF. "Marissa," the lawyer said, "we need to ask you something sensitive. We know you are handling this process with strength, but we have to consider all possibilities." Marissa swallowed hard. "What's going on?" Julian could receive a sentence that, depending on the ruling, would give him the right to request supervised visits with the child in the future. The silence was dry, cold. What do you mean, visits? Only if he requests it and if the judge considers it. But that's why we need you to make it clear that you weren't the only victim, that Liam was too, that this has scarred him. Marissa clenched her jaw. He's never going to see my son again. Not with a guardian. Not on video call. Never again. The lawyer nodded. Then we need your statement to be stronger than ever. You're not just speaking for yourself anymore. You're speaking for his childhood, for his peace of mind, for his life. Marissa didn't flinch. Not this time. I'm ready. She left that room with a confidence she never thought she would have. And that night, before going to sleep, Liam asked her quietly, "Is he going to jail, Mom?" Marissa took a deep breath. That's up to the judge to decide. But whatever happens, he can't hurt us anymore. Liam closed his eyes with that answer and slept without fear, without anxiety, because for the first time he knew he no longer lived in a house with walls that hid screams. Now he lived in a place with open doors, where what hurt was no longer silenced. The day of the trial arrived with a cloudy sky, as if the weather also knew that something important was about to happen. Marissa woke up before the sun. She dressed in the same white blouse she had worn when she first testified, not because it was new or pretty, but because she had worn it on the day she finally decided to stop keeping quiet. Daniela accompanied her to the courthouse entrance. Liam didn't go. He stayed at a neighbor's house watching cartoons with clear instructions not to open the door to anyone. Marissa crossed the threshold of the courthouse without looking back. The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavy and cold. In one corner, representatives from the public prosecutor's office reviewed documents. Opposite them, Julian's lawyer reviewed a folder with a tense expression on her face. On the screens, Julian appeared from the prison, wearing an orange uniform and with shorter hair. He said nothing, just stared straight ahead. When the judge entered, everyone stood up. The voice that opened the trial was that of the prosecutor. This case is not about a single blow. It is about years of abuse, silence, and fear. It is about a child who witnessed hell and decided to show it to the world. Marissa listened to every word with her lips pressed together. She was ready. She had rehearsed her statement 1,000 times, but nothing prepared her for the moment when she was called to the stand. She climbed the steps with cold hands, but her head held high. "Ms. Marissa Ortiz," said the judge, "I remind you that you are under oath. Are you ready to testify?" "Yes," she replied firmly, and began. She recounted everything from the first insults, when they had been married for barely a year, to the shoving, the beatings, the threats to take Liam away if she spoke to anyone. She described the nights she slept with her keys hidden in case she had to flee, the times she lied at the market about her bruises, the times her son pretended not to hear anything, and the night of the video, she said, swallowing hard. "I felt like he was going to kill me. It wasn't just a blow, it was an outburst of hatred. My son saw that, recorded it, and shared it because he didn't know what else to do, because I, as his mother, was no longer protecting him." The judge asked for a break. The courtroom was completely silent. The defense attorney made an attempt to clear Julian's name. She said he had grown up in a violent home, that he didn't know how to handle stress, that he had repented, but no one believed her. When the psychological expert spoke, he was direct. The minor shows clear symptoms of post-traumatic stress. He draws houses with closed windows, faceless people, scenes of confinement. What he experienced was not a family fight. It was a situation of constant threat. His testimony is credible and consistent. After several hours, the judge announced that she would take a few days to deliver her verdict. But she gave a preview that made everything clear. This court does not question the veracity of the minor's testimony or the seriousness of the situation. Marissa left there not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Daniela was waiting for her on the sidewalk with a coffee in her hand, and they still haven't announced the sentence. But I already feel free. That night, when she got home, Marissa found Liam asleep on the couch with a notebook on his chest. She opened it carefully. It was another drawing. This time, the house had trees, a bicycle at the entrance, and in one corner, a male figure crossed out with a large red X. Above all, There was something she hadn't seen in any of his previous drawings. A large yellow sun occupying almost the entire sky. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Marissa didn't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind returned to the courtroom. She heard her own voice. She relived the moment when she talked about everything in front of strangers. She didn't feel ashamed, but her body didn't forget so easily. Liam, on the other hand, seemed calmer. He went to school, drew, played, didn't ask many questions. Only once, seeing that his mother was spending more time sitting in silence, did he say to her, "If they don't put him in jail, are we going to move far away?" Marissa looked at him, surprised by the directness of the question. "We're going to go where you'll be safe, Liam, where we don't have to hide. And we're going to decide that, together." Liam nodded quietly and didn't mention the subject again. That Friday, while Marissa was washing the dishes, her cell phone rang, an unknown number. She hesitated to answer, but she did. "Mrs. Marissa Ortiz, yes. This is Rocio Valverde. The sentence in the case has been issued. The judge signed it a few minutes ago. I wanted to inform you personally before you receive it officially in writing." Marissa dropped the sponge into the sink. "What does it say?" The lawyer took a deep breath. Mr. Julian Zamora was found guilty of aggravated domestic violence. The judge has sentenced him to 11 years in prison, without the right to early release. In addition, he is prohibited for life from having any direct or indirect contact with you or the minor. Marissa felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She didn't cry, she didn't faint. She just leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. And that's final, right? The sentence has been issued. He can appeal, but the evidence is solid, and with the permanent restraining order, you are completely protected. Marissa hung up without saying much. She walked into the living room where Liam was watching cartoons lying on a blanket. Liam turned around and looked at her, waiting for something. "That's it. It's over." Liam frowned. "They put him in jail for 11 years. Liam didn't react immediately. He remained silent. Then, as if it suddenly hit him, he dropped the remote on the floor, walked over, and hugged her tightly. "So he's never coming back. Never, son. He can't hurt us anymore." They didn't say anything else for a while. They just hugged without tears, without words. That night, Daniela prepared a special dinner. She bought soda, cold empanadas, and even brought out a small cake she had gotten at a bakery downtown. "This isn't a party," she said, "but it is a closure, because you deserve it." Marissa smiled for the first time, a real smile, not a forced one, not one out of obligation. She smiled because something in her chest had been unblocked. At the table, Liam drew on a napkin. "What are we going to do now?" "Now we're going to start over." Liam looked at her. "Where?" "Wherever you want." Liam thought for a moment and wrote a word on the napkin with his pencil. "Veracruz." Marissa looked at him in surprise. "Veracruz." The teacher said, "There's a sea there, and I want to see it." Marissa let out a short laugh. She hadn't laughed like that since Liam was 5 years old. "So let's go see the sea." Liam nodded. And for the first time in a long time, his gaze didn't look like that of a broken child. It was the gaze of a child with plans. The decision was easier than Marissa had imagined. After everything they had been through, everything that had been said, everything that had been broken, all she wanted was the same thing Liam wanted: to start over in a place where no one knew them for what they had suffered, but for what they were capable of building. Daniela, although she tried to hide it, had tears in her eyes when Marissa told her they were really going to Veracruz. "Yes, Liam wants to see the sea, and I want him to breathe new air." Daniela hugged them both tightly. "No more. Promise me you'll call me every day when you arrive, if possible. And if anything happens, if you need anything, don't hesitate." "Yes, I promise," said Marissa. "Thank you for saving our lives." "It wasn't me," replied Daniela, nodding toward Liam. "It was him." In the following weeks, Marissa got support from the state program for women in situations of violence. They gave her a temporary rent subsidy, ongoing psychological help, and assistance to relocate to another state. Everything was legal. Everything was protected. The process wasn't easy, but she wasn't alone either. One Monday morning, Marissa and Liam got on a bus to Veracruz, Puerto with 2 suitcases and a box of drawings. They were leaving behind everything that hurt them, but not as people fleeing, but as people who were finally allowing themselves to move forward. The trip was long. Liam spent half the time asleep on his mother's shoulder, and the other half looking out the window with his eyes wide open. When they arrived, the smell of salt hit them in the face like a promise. They stayed the first few days in a small guest house near the boardwalk. Marissa had contacted a local organization that helped relocated women. They offered her a small job in a laundry and a room to rent in a quiet area. It wasn't much, but it was peace. Liam started at a new school a week later. The local psychologist already had his file. There were no interrogations, no uncomfortable looks, just a warm welcome from a principal who said, "Here, children don't carry burdens that aren't theirs." Marissa worked in the mornings, and in the afternoons she accompanied Liam to the park, the beach, or simply for a walk along the boardwalk. One afternoon after school, Liam asked her to go straight to the sea. Marissa agreed. They sat on the sand without talking much. The boy took a notebook out of his backpack and began to draw. Simple but firm strokes. When Marissa looked over, she saw the scene. The two of them sitting with their backs to the camera in front of a blue sea with a clear sky above. Liam wrote the title at the top, "Here You Can Breathe." Marissa stared at him. The wind ruffled his hair. The waves lapped gently. "Are you happy, son?" Liam didn't answer right away. He just closed his eyes as if feeling the air. Then he said, "Yes, and nothing hurts anymore when I fall asleep." That was the real beginning. Not the trial, not the sentence, not the video, but that moment. The moment when a child finally understood what it meant to live without fear. The days in Veracruz passed differently. There was a routine, yes, but without tension. Marissa got up early to go to the laundromat, where she washed and ironed clothes in a small shop with two other women, both of whom were also survivors. There, they didn't talk much about what they had left behind. They understood each other with looks. They took care of each other without saying so. Liam, for his part, adapted better than Marissa had imagined. His teacher said he read quickly, that he was observant, that although he spoke little, he had important things to say when he decided to. He even dared to participate in a drawing contest organized by the state DAIFE, where the theme was, "What home means to you." He didn't tell Marissa anything. He just came home one afternoon with a folded envelope and put it on the table. "What's that?" she asked. "A contest. I sent it in today. What did you draw?" Liam shrugged. "I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to wait." Marissa smiled. There was something new about her son, a kind of sparkle that hadn't been there before. It wasn't complete happiness. It was something else. It was the certainty that the worst was over. A week later, Marissa received a call from the school. They wanted to talk to her in person. When she arrived, the principal took her straight to the teacher's lounge, where a representative from DAIFE and the psychologist were waiting. "Mrs. Marissa, do you know about the drawing Liam submitted for the contest?" "Yes, he told me something about it." "Did something happen?" The psychologist handed her a folded sheet of paper. Marissa opened it. It was the drawing. There was a white house with a red roof, a tree on one side, a bicycle leaning against the wall. Inside, drawn by a window, were a woman and a child embracing. And above, in large letters, Liam had written, "Home is where you no longer have to hide your voice." Marissa felt a lump in her throat. "Your son won first place," said the principal. "But beyond the prize, we wanted you to know this. Liam is healing and transforming what he experienced into something greater, something that can help other children." The DIF representative added, "There are children who survive, and there are children who teach others how to get out. Your son is one of those." Marissa couldn't hold back her tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. It was as if everything that had been broken inside her was finally finding its shape. That night, when she got home, Marissa hugged Liam tighter than usual. "I'm proud of you." Liam smiled without saying anything. The next day, he was invited to a small ceremony to receive the award. It was nothing fancy, just a room with chairs, a microphone, and a few parents. But when they handed him his diploma and a box of new colors, Liam came down from the stage, approached Marissa, and whispered in her ear, "This is yours too." Marissa couldn't speak. She just hugged him. And as everyone applauded, She understood that sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they are 1.20 meters tall, have drawings in their pockets, and a heart that never gave up. Little by little, life stopped feeling like a battle. There were difficult days. Yes, not everything became magical overnight. Marissa still had nightmares from time to time, and Liam sometimes woke up in the middle of the night with his eyes wide open, as if looking for something that was no longer there. But now they knew how to calm each other down, how to talk about it, how to be there for each other. The psychologist who treated him in Veracruz said something that Marissa never forgot. Wounds don't disappear, they remain as scars, but scars are also proof that they survived. Over time, Marissa managed to rent a small apartment on her own. 2 rooms, a modest kitchen, and a balcony with a partial view of the sea. It was hers. It didn't matter if it was small or if the stove didn't work. It was her space, her life, her decision. Liam already had friends, played soccer on Fridays, stayed to do homework at one of their houses, and sometimes asked permission to go to the movie theater downtown. Marissa set limits, but she also trusted him, because her son had proven he had a heart that knew how to choose. One Sunday afternoon, while walking on the beach, Marissa received an unexpected call. It was Rocío Valverde, the prosecutor who had accompanied her from day one. "Hello, Marissa. I didn't want to let any more time go by without telling you this. Today marks 1 year since you filed the complaint. The case has now been officially closed without appeal." Case closed. Marissa stood silently on the sand, barefoot. 1 year. That's right. And you don't know how many women, after seeing your case, dared to speak up. One of them recorded her attacker after seeing Liam's video. Another was accompanied by her son to file the complaint. You have no idea what an impact they had. Marissa took a deep breath, looked at the sea, at the horizon, at Liam drawing on the sand with a long stick. "You know what, lawyer? I didn't do anything that great. I just survived. He did the great thing, and they continue to do so," Rocío replied in a calm voice. "Living in peace, showing no fear, that is also resistance." Marissa hung up the phone with a different feeling. It wasn't relief, it was something deeper, a kind of certainty that when pain is named, it ceases to be punishment and becomes momentum. That night, while they were making sandwiches in the kitchen, Liam played music on his cell phone. It was a cheerful song, one of those with Caribbean rhythms. Marissa danced with him, laughing and moving awkwardly. Liam imitated her, and for a moment the two of them looked exactly like what they were, mother and son, nothing more, nothing less. They were no longer the story that everyone shared, no longer the broken family in the video. Now they were the ones who had managed to rebuild themselves from scratch, from the bottom up, and were ready for whatever came next. A year and a half after it all began, Liam stood in front of an auditorium with more than 100 people seated. He was wearing a school uniform, his hair was neatly combed, and he had a small badge hanging around his neck. He was part of an event organized by the State Department of Education, where outstanding students were recognized for their example of overcoming adversity. It wasn't a big event. There was no television or national media, but his teachers, classmates, local authorities, and in the back, his mother, sitting with a smile that didn't fit on her face, were there. When the teacher introduced him, she said, "He didn't ask to be an example, but he was. Not because of what he did, but because of what he chose to do after he did it, to move forward." Liam walked to the front. He was holding a piece of paper with some words written on it. He climbed onto the podium, adjusted the microphone, and spoke without trembling. "My name is Liam, and I'm 10 years old. A while ago, I went through something very ugly with my family. I was very scared, but I recorded a video. I did it because I wanted someone to help. And yes, they helped my mom and me, but they also helped others." Pause. "I'm not going to tell you it was easy because it wasn't, but I learned that if you don't speak up, no one knows. And now, it doesn't hurt to talk about it anymore." The auditorium fell silent. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a kid who wanted to sleep peacefully. And now I sleep because there are no more screams in my house, because I don't have to hide anymore, because now I have another life, and because my mom never gave up." People applauded. Marissa recorded it with her cell phone, crying softly, not out of sadness, but out of an emotion that cannot be explained in words. After the event, they walked home. It was a hot day. They bought ice cream in the square and laughed. They talked about simple things. They were no longer afraid that someone would recognize them from the video. Now they were simply Liam and Marissa, mother and son, people who had gone through fire and walked away, people who had learned to use what hurt them to forge new paths. When they got home, Marissa found an envelope with no return address on the table. When she opened it, she discovered a letter written in pen, in serious handwriting. It was from the judge who had presided over the case. Dear Ms. Marissa Ortiz and dear Liam, your case touched me not only because of your courage, but because it forced me to look differently at what lies behind so many files. Thank you for showing that justice is not only measured in years of prison, but in opportunities to live again. Thank you for reminding us why we do this. Marissa read it silently. Then she gave it to Liam. He read it all the way through, and when he finished, he said, "Does that mean we're not victims anymore?" Marissa stroked his hair. "No, son. It means we're survivors." And as the afternoon wore on and the sea sounded in the distance, Liam took out his notebook again. He opened a blank page and began to draw. It was a house, yes, but this time it had balloons floating on the ceiling, a hammock in the yard, and a huge sign that read, "Welcome, because your life finally belongs to you." This story reminds us that the pain we hide does not disappear, but when it is shown, when it is heard, when it is faced, it can become freedom. If you are going through something similar or know someone who is, remember this: staying silent is never the only option. There is always a way out. There is always someone who can listen. You can always leave the place where they made you believe you deserved to suffer. And if you've already been through it, if you survived, you are not weak. You are living proof that you can start over. Because, as Liam drew on that piece of paper, home is where you no longer have to hide your voice, and everyone deserves to live in a place like that.